So years ago, we felt a stirring and a restlessness to do something different. And for us, it wasn't a defining or a specific thing that we knew that this is exactly what God wanted us to do. This is exactly where God wanted us to go. It was, there's something else, and God wanted us to just walk with him and journey through it with him. So it was us stepping out in faith, not knowing what that was, but taking different steps. And as we did that, God would just guide us and open the doors and close doors.
And revealed things, revealed it as we stepped out.
Yeah. And I think that was kind of our journey until where we are today. That started how many years ago? And we've been involved in a couple different ministries, and every time it was more of a step-by-step. And through our time in ministry, God continues to shape and mold our hearts and our minds, and leads us. We married in 2003. We worked for about 3 years. I was working as a nurse, and Greg was a small engines mechanic, and we served in our church, and we were very involved in the church. And I think we would have been fine and maybe somewhat satisfied to continue doing what we were doing. I don't think there's anything wrong with what we were doing, but that stirring and that restless feeling is what drew us to that change, to take that next step of faith and see where God was leading us to.
For us, it's been there's moments in serving, and we've been on serving in missions for about 10 years now, over 10 years, and as well going into Bible college, me finishing 4 years at Bible college, kind of in between that, just the way the Lord has been working in our hearts as well too. And I mean, you see it, we all see it in our walk with the Lord, and as we journey with him and going deeper in our faith and growing in character. And so, recently how we've seen God working is that even in times of suffering, and oftentimes I say even in times of suffering, where it's like I'm still working to change my mindset, that God works through suffering, and suffering is a part of God's plan. And I mean, it's through his suffering that he brought salvation and the most beautiful gift of all. And it's through our times of suffering as well that he's glorified. And just thinking of 2 Corinthians chapter 12, where it says, my grace is sufficient for you, for in weakness my power is made perfect. And so that's been something, a huge lesson for us lately, and how we've seen God working within us to humble us and to learn to rejoice in suffering, like Paul says in Romans chapter 5 verse 3, because of what it produces after that in the suffering. And so, I mean, losing a teammate back in April to complications due to COVID, different stressful, challenging, very, very challenging situations within our team that brought hardships and suffering for us. And by no means do we have it perfect, but we're thankful to see how the Lord has been working in our lives and just really humbling us through those situations and building what we believe in, building our character and helping us mature. And even seeing in our team just the incredible unity that he's brought. There was this kind of disjointedness within our team up until this year, and up until we faced these challenges, especially with losing a team member, and just seeing people grow in their faith and grow in unity with one another. And so that's been amazing to experience that. And even in our relationship, it's drawn us closer as well. And so, that's how we've been seeing God working, and it's all a part of his plan, and it's in the everyday that we're growing, and we can see him work and prepare us for what's ahead, prepare us for what he has planned for us. And so I think it's really a combination of those two. It's stepping out in faith. And when you feel, whether it's restlessness or dissatisfaction with where you're at, whether it's in your relationship with the Lord or where he's leading you, so stepping out, and then realizing that God will lead you even through the tough times.
My first reaction to that question is, I think that the hardships have actually kept us here, because the hardships have kept us on our knees, and it has brought us closer to God and brought us closer together in our relationship as well. Our relationship is fine, but with definitely a lot more in depth now. And I remember when our staff member, Pastor Mel, when he was fighting for his life in the hospital, and every day we'd be praying, we'd be meeting together as a team in prayer. And I remember saying, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember saying to Greg that I never want to lose this passion to pray.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I mean, it's forced us to be more intentional. Like we were very intentional about praying for Pastor Mel at that time, and we've been more intentional about trying to stay healthy physically during this time, and to stay healthy through being in the Word and prayer as well. And so I think there's that aspect as well, is just being more intentional, and even being intentional with our kids. This is life, right? It's not about an entitlement. It's about, like, we are going to face hard times and challenges, but where does our help come from? Our help comes from.
And we've said this many times during the pandemic, like over the last 18 months, it's definitely made us have much more of a heavenward focus, and just constantly reminding ourselves that this is not our final destination, with everything that's going on in the world and all, like the pandemic and the way people react to it. It's really, it can ruin relationships, and just having that focus on Christ and not getting overwhelmed and bogged down in that, but just loving Christ and loving others.
Yeah. And I mean, if there's something that we can relay to the audience that will listen to these videos, is that we are real people, and God has created us that way, and he's created us all so uniquely that, like, in our weakness, like from what I had read earlier, in our weakness his power is made perfect. And so I mean, it's just that's the cool thing, that it's like we can mess it up, we can react, we can mess up the opportunity that suffering has brought in our lives, and yet still God can use that. And so I mean, if we can tell people, encouraging them in their walk with the Lord, it's like one of the big things that we learned through these 18 months, and somebody had said this to us, they said, never waste a good crisis. But it's true, because I mean, God is at work, and he's going to use that in our lives. And so, for people, whatever they're facing, whatever they're going through, seek God and see how he's moving and how he's speaking through that situation. And it can be any and every situation, whether it's facing grief or death or major failure or sin, using those situations to call people to himself.